The earth is alive. It trembles under your horse's hooves. Ahead, the horizon is moving, a dark, living wave of muscle and horn. Thousands of buffalo surge together, their breath steaming in the cold morning air, the sound like distant thunder rolling toward you. The wind is heavy with the scent of crushed prairie grass and the musk of the herd. Your bowstring is tight in your fingers, or maybe in later years your rifle rests against your leg. You lean forward, every heartbeat matching the pounding of the ground beneath you. The signal comes, and you ride. Buffalo hunting was not just about food. For countless generations of the Plains tribes, Lakota, Cheyenne, Comanche, Blackfeet, Crow, and many others, the buffalo was life itself. It fed the people, clothed them, gave them shelter, tools, even fuel for their fires. To hunt the buffalo was to connect with ancestors, the land, and the cycles of nature. By the late 1700s, these hunts were a blend of ancient tradition and evolving technology, as horses and later firearms changed the way the chase unfolded. And in the 1800s, as settlers, soldiers, and market hunters moved into the Great Plains, the buffalo hunt transformed again, sometimes into a grim race for profit that pushed the animal to the brink of extinction. Movies have often shown a romanticized version, a single heroic rider taking down a charging bull with one shot, dust swirling dramatically. The reality was both more complex and more remarkable. In this video, we're going to step into that reality, the sights, sounds, and sweat of a real buffalo hunt between the mid-1700s and the late 1800s, told through a mix of written accounts from explorers, traders, and military officers, and oral histories passed down through generations in native communities. A buffalo hunt didn't begin when riders charged the herd. It began days, sometimes weeks earlier. First came scouting. Hunters would ride out, often in small, fast groups, scanning the horizon from high ridges. A good herd could number from a few hundred to thousands, and knowing their location was crucial. Scouts read the land the way others might read a map, the direction of the wind, the fresh churn of grass, tracks pressed into the soil, even the faint smell of the herd carried for miles. Wind direction was everything. A buffalo's sense of smell could ruin a hunt before it began. That's why the scouts approached from downwind, sometimes circling for miles to find the right angle. Then came planning. In some tribes, like the Lakota, the chief or a respected hunt leader decided when and where to strike. The decision wasn't just tactical, it was spiritual. The buffalo were more than prey. They were a gift from the Creator. A hunt leader might call for a ceremony or prayer, asking permission from the Buffalo Nation and promising the hunt would be respectful and waste nothing. Among the Blackfeet, a pre-hunt ritual called Okan could involve songs, drumming, and the telling of stories about great hunts of the past. The Comanche, famed for their horsemanship, might have riders rehearse formations and signals to coordinate the chase. In winter, hunts had to account for deep snow, which slowed the riders but could also bog down the buffalo. In summer, heat could make the meat spoil quickly, so speed and butchering became part of the plan. Sometimes the hunt was not a mounted chase at all. Before horses were common in the 1700s, tribes like the Mandan or Assiniboine used buffalo jumps, driving herds toward cliffs or steep ravines where they could be trapped and killed. Even in the horse era, these strategies lingered in certain landscapes. Every hunt was a gamble. The hunters knew the risks. A bad approach could scatter the herd beyond reach. A misread of the wind could end the day with empty hands. And on the open plains, there was nowhere to hide your mistakes. When you picture a buffalo hunt, you might imagine a rifle shot echoing across the plains. But for much of the 1700s and early 1800s, that shot didn't exist. The bow was still the most trusted tool. Plains bows were short,
often just over 3 feet long, made from chokecherry or ash, sometimes backed with sinew for extra power. The arrows, fletched with turkey or eagle feathers, had stone or later metal points. At a full gallop, a skilled hunter could loose 3 arrows in the time it took to fire and reload a musket. Then there was the lance, a long, narrow spear, sometimes over 10 feet in length. The Comanche especially were masters of the lance, leaning low over their horses and striking from the side, aiming for the lungs or heart. Oral histories say a well-balanced lance could drop a buffalo almost instantly if placed right. Firearms began to appear in hunts after trade with Europeans intensified. The first were smoothbore muskets, traded by French, British, and later American merchants. They were powerful but slow to reload and prone to misfire in damp weather. Still, they allowed hunters to strike from slightly farther away. By the mid-1800s, the buffalo rifle, heavy, large-caliber guns like the Sharp's 50 cal, were used by market hunters. These were not usually used by tribal hunters in the chase. They were for long-range shooting from a stationary position. But as firearms became more reliable and ammunition more available, many native hunters incorporated them into the mounted chase, blending old and new techniques. But no matter the weapon, success came down to horsemanship. The best hunters could guide their mount with knees and weight alone, leaving both hands free for bow, lance, or rifle. Horses, too, were trained for the work, some to run close and steady, others to weave through the herd without panic. The moment before the charge was taut with silence. Only the shifting of horses, the creak of leather, the wind in the grass. Then came the signal. Riders surged forward. Dust rose in great clouds, and the ground seemed to roll beneath you. The herd, startled into motion, could reach speeds of 35 miles per hour. The buffalo's bulk, bulls weighing up to 2,000 pounds, made them seem unstoppable, yet they could turn sharply without warming. Hunters aimed to ride up alongside, often targeting cows rather than bulls. Cows were smaller, easier to bring down, and their meat was considered sweeter. But in a mixed herd, there was little choice, and a bull, if threatened, could wheel around and gore a horse in seconds. Accounts from the 1830s describe Lakota hunters riding so close their legs brushed the shaggy flank of the animal, loosing arrows into the ribs at nearly point-blank range. The arrow needed to drive deep enough to puncture lungs or heart. A poorly placed shot might only wound, and a wounded buffalo could run for miles. Every sense was engaged: the thunder of hooves, the stinging dust in your eyes, the heat of the horse beneath you, lathered with sweat, the sharp animal smell of the buffalo mingling with the tang of your own breath. Danger was constant. A stumble from your horse could send you tumbling under the herd. One Cheyenne story tells of a young hunter whose mount was killed beneath him. He rolled to his feet and somehow dodged through the stampede to safety, but with broken ribs and a limp that lasted his life. Some hunts ended quickly, a dozen animals taken in minutes. Others stretched on for miles, the riders peeling away one by one as their horses tired, until only the fastest could keep up.
When the chase ended, the work began. The first task was to ensure the buffalo was truly dead. A wounded animal could rise unexpectedly, thrashing with enough force to kill a person outright. Hunters approached cautiously, often from behind, ready to finish the job with a swift cut to the throat or a final arrow. Then the butchering started, sometimes right there on the open prairie. Each tribe had its own methods, but there were similarities. A long incision down the belly opened the carcass. Skilled hands removed the organs. The liver, still warm, might be eaten raw as a delicacy, dipped in gall for flavor. The tongue was prized and set aside. Knives of iron or steel, traded from Europeans, replaced older stone blades, but the motions remained the same.
quick, precise, born of long practice. Hunters and helpers peeled back the heavy hide, sometimes more than an inch thick around the shoulders. Every part of the buffalo had a purpose. Meat was cut into long strips to be roasted fresh, boiled in soups, or dried for storage as pemmican, a mixture of dried meat, fat, and berries that could last for months. Hides became robes, teepee covers, and clothing. In winter hunts, the hides were taken with the thick winter fur intact. In summer, they were tanned into soft buckskin. Sinew was used for bowstrings, sewing thread, and lashings. Bones were shaped into tools, scrapers, and even children's toys. Horns became spoons, cups, or powder horns for carrying gunpowder. Bladders and stomachs served as containers for water or cooking. Even dried dung, known as buffalo chips, was collected for fuel in treeless regions of the plains. There was no waste in a traditional tribal hunt. What could not be carried home was left for wolves, coyotes, and birds, completing the circle of life the hunters respected deeply. In large hunts, entire families came to the kill site. Women worked alongside men to skin and cut. Children gathered scraps for boiling or drying. The prairie might be dotted with dozens of carcasses, each surrounded by a circle of busy hands, the air heavy with the smell of blood and fresh meat.